Thank you for listening to this podcast from TRE, Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain and around the world. For more information, please visit TRE.radio.
Ger Sweeney presents Live on Eire in association with EmeraldConnection.net.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney. Good evening and welcome. Nice to have your company on this Wednesday evening. I can tell you I'm not 100% sure what the weather is like in Spain at the moment, but here on the west coast of Ireland, in fact right across Ireland, it is absolutely miserable. It is raining cats, dogs, elephants, zebras, you name it. We've got gusty winds and it's perishing. Perishing cold. So it is. So I hope you're wrapped up really well where you happen to be. Before we continue, where's my manners? Thank you to Bob James for looking after us for the last hour on Spain Today. He's back with you tomorrow between 6 and 7 for another edition of Spain Today. But of course, you will hear his dulcet tones throughout the day as he presents the Spanish news at various times, starting just after 8 tomorrow morning when Dave will be along for Daybreak. Anyway, sorry, I'm playing with things on the desk and they're falling around the place. If you hear crackling or anything in the background, I have the door to the office stroke studio ever so slightly open and the fire is on. So that'll be the crackling that you hear, right? Between now and 9 o'clock. I hope you can stay with me. I have what I think is a smashing programme, a dinging programme lined up for you. Patricia Traynor will be joining us for the first time in 2023. And Patricia starts a new series of stories today. I'll give you more details on that a little later on, but you will hear Patricia's voice in the first hour of the programme. And the second hour is going to be dedicated to the harmonica. The what? The harmonica. Yeah, I told you the story as to how it was that I got in contact with Mick Kinsella, one of Ireland's best known, best loved, and indeed foremost harmonica players. And Mick lives not too far from where I am at the moment. He lives in a beautiful spot in West Clare, and I travelled back there on last Saturday, and he and I sat in his music room, if you don't mind, and a little workshop that he has there as well, and we chatted about how to play the harmonica. And it was almost an hour. In fact, I was there for longer than an hour, but it will be almost the entire programme, the second part of the programme, and it was just one of those chats that just was lovely. And you come away from the place, despite the bad weather, feeling so much better. So Mick Kinsella and myself having a chat about the harmonica in the second hour of the programme. So there you have it. If you'd like to get in contact at any stage between now and then, I would love, then being 9 o'clock, I would love to hear from you. You can send a WhatsApp message if you like to +34 645 99 67 95, or you can send an email to studio@tre.radio. Of course, my own email address is working as well, so you can also send an email to Ger, G-E-R, @tre.radio. I monitor both of those while I'm on air. So, you know what we have for you this evening. We've got some music in there as well, and we're going to start the programme with some good news and some bad news. The good news, well, part of the good news first. 3/4 of the 40 cities and towns surveyed across Ireland are clean, compared to just over half this time last year. That's according to the Irish Business Against Litter, IBAL, they call themselves. It was an organisation set up by a man who has gone to his eternal reward now. I think he died last year, a man called Tom Kavanagh, who was a car salesman based in Charleville in County Cork, and he got this idea that he wanted to clean up Ireland to get rid of the litter and stuff, and so he started this organisation called IBAL. Anyway, the final survey of 2022 shows that Naas in County Kildare is the cleanest town in Ireland for the second year in a row, with its main street singled out as exceptionally well presented and maintained. Kilkenny and Maynooth are in joint second, and for the third year in a row, Waterford was deemed the cleanest city ahead of Galway. So congratulations. Some bad news now. Well-known traditional musician and singer Seamus Begley has died at the age of 73. The West Kerry man was widely regarded as one of the country's finest accordion players, while his gentle style of singing endeared him to audiences the world over. Part of a family steeped in a rich musical tradition, Seamus Begley acquired much of his repertoire by the hearth side at home in Bollian na Buch in the West Kerry Gaeltacht, and was heavily influenced by the songs and music of his native Broista Murach. His first album, featuring his sister Moira in 1973, launched the Kerryman, and from there Seamus enjoyed a fruitful career, performing extensively across the world and establishing himself as one of the leading lights on the traditional music scene. His collaboration with Australian guitarist Steve Cooney produced the groundbreaking album Mehel back in 1992, which received international acclaim. He was a charismatic performer, renowned for his sharp wit and colourful turn of phrase. Seamus is survived by his wife Mary, his children Brendan, Owen, Niall and Maeve, along with an extended musical family of sisters, brothers, nieces and nephews. There have been tributes over the last 48 hours from all quarters. If you look at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, listen to the radio, read the newspapers, watch the television. He was one of these much loved and charismatic characters. So the late Seamus Begley passing away at the age of 73, and we say Yeshte go reva anam delish. I'm going to stay with the bad news, and I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but one of our colleagues at Talk Radio Europe, Ron Jones, you may remember Ron's vintage vinyl smashing programme, and he had such a fabulous turn of phrase. He had a wonderful presentation style. Took a little bit of getting used to be honest, when you didn't know Ron. But once you were locked into that and you understand it, just phenomenal. And I was saddened hugely to learn of Ron's passing. And I hope that we'll hear his voice on Talk Radio Europe in the future. Maybe some of the repeats of some of vintage vinyls. And I'm just sorry that I'm not in Spain to attend the service, but there you go. Ron Jones, one of our colleagues. I only met Ron once because we were on at different times, and so we were at the radio station at different times, but it turns out that we were together there at one stage, and both of us were as happy to see the other. It was great, and a memory that I will cherish for a long, long time. One of the disc jockeys from the Cavern Club, I think he was DJing there when Scylla started out. I know himself and Dave some years ago did a great piece on Scylla. I think it was after she had passed away. So to our colleague at Talk Radio Europe, Ron Jones, we say, Yeshte go reva anam delish freshen. Let's go back to the good news. Yes, the Banshees of Inisherin. That's the big news today in Ireland. It was the big winner at the Golden Globes in Beverly Hills last night, winning Best Picture, Musical or Comedy, Best Actor for Colin Farrell, and Best Screenplay for writer-director Martin McDonagh, a comedy which was filmed in Inishmore, one of the Aran Islands, and Achill Island has led to the shortlist. Had led the shortlist with 8 nominations. Both Farrell and McDonagh are previous Golden Globe winners. Accepting his award, Farrell thanked the entire cast and crew of the Oscar-tipped film. He even went as far as thanking Jenny the Donkey. And if you've seen the film, you'll know who Jenny the Donkey is. He spoke beautifully about Jenny the Donkey. So congratulations to everybody associated with the Banshees of Inisherin. Some people love it. I'm one of those. Some people didn't like it and were disappointed with it. But that's it. Just the way I suppose people's tastes differ as we go about our business. Isn't that it? Right, let's go and take some music, shall we? It's about time that we did that, I think. I hadn't intended to play anything from Seamus Begley this evening, until, of course, the news of his passing, and I thought we couldn't let the programme go without listening to his dulcet tones. Let's take a track that's called the Loch Tay Boat Song from the late Seamus Begley.
When I've done my work of day and I row my boat away down the water waters of Loch Tay, as the evening light is fading, and I gaze upon Ben Laws, where the afterglow glows, and I think unto bright eyes and a melting mouth below. She's my beauteous Ninrua, she's my joy and sorrow too, and if she'll prove untrue, well, I cannot live without her, for my heart's a boat in tow, and I'd give the world to know why she means to let me go, as I sing Eire. Ninrua, your lovely hair has more glamour, I declare, than all the tresses rare, twinkling and Aberfeldy, be they lint, white, brown, or gold, be they blacker than the snow, they're no more worth to me than the melting flake of snow. And her eyes are like the gleam of the sunlight on the stream, and the songs the fairies sing are like songs she sings at milking time. But my heart is filled with woe, for last night she bade me go, and the tears began to flow as I sing Eire. She's my beauteous Ninrua, she's my joy and sorrow too, and if she'll prove untrue, well, I cannot live without her, for my heart's a boat in tow, and I'd give the world to know why she means to let me go, as I sing Eire.
The voice of Seamus Begley, who passed away about 48 hours ago. And lovely, wasn't it? Yeah, I thought it was nice. And that was from an album that he released back in 2015. Nice to play something from Seamus on the programme this evening. I am going to take a quick break. I think it's time to do that. Will you come back to me just after the break, and we'll get up to more development, all right?
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Welcome back to the programme, and thank you for tuning my way on this Wednesday evening. I hope you'll stay with me through until 9. Now, nationalist parties did not attend talks in Belfast today with British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly after Sinn Féin leader Mary Lou MacDonald was told that she was not allowed in. Now, it turns out that Mr. Cleverly and Northern Ireland Secretary Chris Heaton-Harris had been expected to meet representatives of all the main parties in Northern Ireland, but Sinn Féin pulled out after the party said that Miss MacDonald, who is a TD in Dáil Éireann, was not allowed to attend. It's understood the UK government is making the case that Mr. Cleverly was unable to meet Miss MacDonald before meeting Micheál Martin, his opposite number in the Irish government, due to diplomatic protocol. However, in a statement, Sinn Sinn Féin said that it was informed last night that the British government is excluding the Sinn Féin Uachtaráin, that means president, and party leader Mary Lou MacDonald from today's meeting. Speaking to reporters in Belfast, Miss MacDonald said it was beyond bizarre and less than helpful that she was not invited to the talks, and blamed her exclusion on British Tory petulance. As I mentioned earlier, the SDLP said its delegation would not attend the talks unless Miss MacDonald was admitted. That didn't happen, so none of the nationalist parties were there. The value of food and drink to horticulture exports increased by 22% last year to reach a new record high of €16.7 billion. Board BIA's export performance and prospects report shows the significant increase in food and drink exports, up €3 billion since last year, and almost 30% on pre-pandemic levels. That can be attributed, they said, to both increasing unit prices due to inflation and rising input and operational costs, and an increase in the volume of goods exported. Value-added meat and seafood exports captured under prepared consumer foods reached over €1 billion in 2022. This represented an increase of 30% compared with the previous year, with exports surpassing pre-COVID-19 levels by 23%. Within meat, Board BIA said that this subcategory represents a vitally important outlet for traditionally lower value cuts. The Chief Executive Officer, Jim O'Toole, said that Board BIA is working very closely with over 55,000 farmers and over 300 companies through its Origin Green programme to help them address the climate challenge. The volume of exports for sectors such as Irish beef and dairy increased also in 2022. Good news all round, I think. There's been a couple of price increases in Ireland over the last 24 hours as well. I'll tell you about those very shortly, but I want to take a track from the man that you're going to be listening to in the second hour of the programme, Mick Kinsella, and he gave me a couple of albums to take away with me when I was leaving, and I'm going to take a track from one of those albums, just himself on the harmonica. In fact, the album is called Harmonica, and here's a fabulous track. It's called Canyon Moonrise from Mick Kinsella. that lovely? That is Mick Kinsella. He will be our guest in the second hour of the programme on the harmonica from an album called Harmonica. That's a tune called Canyon Rise. I hope it relaxed you almost as much as it relaxed me. We're not happy in Ireland. Because An Post is to increase the cost of domestic stamps from by 10 cent at the start of next month. The national stamp will rise in price by 8% from the current €1.25 to €1.35. But a worldwide letter stamp will remain at the current level of €2.20. The digital stamp, introduced back in October of last year, which currently costs €2, will also remain unchanged. Last March, An Post increased the price of a domestic stamp by 15 cent to €1.25, while the cost of sending a letter abroad went up by 20% to €2.20. The company has blamed rising costs in areas such as transport, fuel, energy and operations for the latest decision. No, that's bad. That is bad. But this is worse. Much worse. In fact, I'd go as far as to say 'tis worser, because it's been announced an increase in the cost of draft beers supplied by Diageo, which owns Guinness, will most likely have to be passed on to consumers. According to the president of the Vintners Federation of Ireland, drinks group Diageo is to increase the price that it charges for draft beer by 12 cent per pint. That's a lot, isn't it? Excluding VAT, the increase applies to its entire range of draft beers. The company blamed rising costs for its decision. Like many businesses in Ireland, we are facing significant inflation in input costs across our operations, it said in a statement. We've absorbed these costs for as long as possible, but unfortunately, we can no longer continue to do so. The price hike will take effect from the 1st of February, and the company has written to consumers in the on-trade to inform them. The Vintners Federation of Ireland President Paul Moynihan said that members are angry about the price increases. Yeah, he was mentioning that the 1st of February is kind of still in the lean time after Christmas. And there was a mention that it should have been deferred until at least after St. Patrick's Day. But that doesn't seem to be the case. If there's any developments, sure, I shall tell you on another occasion. I think what we'll do now is we'll take a quick break, then come back to me, and I will introduce you to Patricia for her first story from... Actually, no, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take the break, and then we'll come back and I'll take a piece of music, and then we'll introduce you to Patricia. Yeah, that's what we'll do.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
They are celebrating at Cork Airport because last year they welcomed 2.24 million passengers. That was up 768% on the 2021 traffic. Well, of course it would be because of you know what. Yeah. The figure represents an increase, though, of 86% on pre-pandemic passenger numbers in 2019. The airport said its recovery was due to strong demand for international travel, coupled with new route additions. It also said its successful runway reconstruction, which was completed in November 2021, helped to grow traffic. So well done to Cork Airport. I've used it, I think, 3 times, flying back and forth to Malaga. 3 occasions. I've used Dublin once because I normally travel out of Shannon because it's so convenient and such a smashing airport as well. But Cork Airport, nice airport. It's small and you get through the necessities very quickly, which is nice. Antonio Sierra sent me information on the Spanish Association of Irish Studies. That's the AEDE. No, sorry, it's the AEDEI, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, they have announced the publication of the first volume of essays on Evelyn Conlon's work, Telling Truths, Evelyn Conlon and the Task of Writing. This is from the Peter Lang series, volume 117 of 2023, all right? The book was edited by AEDEI member Teresa Caneda and includes a foreword by Michael Cronin and an interview with the Irish author as well. AEDEI members want to send congratulations to Teresa Caneda and the rest of the contributors for this timely publication, and so say all of us, and we wish her well with it. Right, now this is a song that I had fully intended on playing today. We're back on track, as the man says. Roisin.
If you feel like that, it's been a long time since we've talked like that. But please don't walk away, don't turn 2017 is all a dream. Our first dance moves so fast, but where are we gonna be in 2023? This is our last chance, slipping away from what we used to be. 2017 is all a dream. Our first dance moves so fast, but where are we gonna be in 2023? It could be dancing in love. We was near 2017.
Nice. You've heard Roisin O on the programme before. That's a current single from her. It's called 2023. And I think she wrote that about 2 years ago. And it's been sitting on the shelf just waiting for 2023. News has just broken in the last 20 minutes that Roy Barrett is to step down as independent chairperson of the Football Association of Ireland, the FAI. Today, the FAI informed members of the General Assembly of Barrett's decision to step away from the role that he has held since January 2020. Barrett, a managing director at Goodbody Stockbrokers, assumed the role amid a time of upheaval in the association, stating that at the time that he chose the role, as he believed that the FAI had an important role to play in developing the game at every level in Ireland. There will be a lot more on that story over the next 24, 48 hours, and indeed, I would imagine for the next few weeks as well. Roy Barrett stepping down as the independent chairperson of the Football Association of Ireland. Right, I'm going to take... We're not going to the break. No, we're going straight to Patricia. That's right. For those of you who don't know, Patricia is a regular contributor to the programme. And what happens basically is that I go and I visit Patricia, and it's an excuse for us to get together and have a chat. And she has prepared 5 or 6 stories, a series, all kind of connected together with one particular theme. And then I play them out over the next couple of weeks after that. And then I go back and I visit again, and we go to lunch afterwards, and it's always lovely. Terribly civilised, terribly indeed. Patricia, if you happen to be listening, I hope you had a wonderful Christmas, and Happy New Year to you and to Juan and to all the family, and look forward to seeing you. We are back in Spain. We're travelling over the weekend, thankfully, and let's hope that the wind will have died down and it'll be a plain sailing, but that's the plan anyway. So next week I'll be back in the studio, and I'm so looking forward to leaving the Irish weather behind. I really am. But anyway, Patricia, hopefully we'll catch up in the next couple of weeks. But for now, let's go to the very first story in a brand new series from Patricia.
Well, hello, Ger. Today I'm going to talk about names and emblems of Ireland. Well, you're probably thinking that there are only 2 names for Ireland, Eire and Ireland. But in fact, there are quite a few names, and of course, some are more common than others. For example, Scotia. The people of Ireland were known as the Scots, or the Scotti, right up to the Middle Ages, and the country of Ireland was called Scotia. It's said that the country was named after Scotta, who was the daughter of the pharaoh, and who was an ancestor of the Milesians. Now, the Milesians came from Galicia in Spain, but their ancestors had travelled across Europe from Scythia and had finally settled in Spain. Well, the Milesians arrived in Ireland at the time of the Tuatha De Danann, that is, the magic tribe who ruled Ireland. The Milesians were enchanted at first by the beauty of the island and thought it to be the Isle of Destiny in Ishfile, which were foretold to them by Moses. However, the Tuatha De Danann were suspicious of the intentions of the Milesians and killed the leader of their party, a man called Eire, who was the brother of King Mill in Galicia. When the news got back to Spain, King Mill actually had died, but his widow, the Queen, and their sons, and the son of Eire, the man who had been killed, set forth for Ireland to seek revenge. Both the Tuatha De Danann and the Milesians had magic powers, and although the Tuatha De Danann tried to prevent the Milesians from coming ashore by conjuring up a great storm, the poet of the Milesians, Amergin, called out to the spirit of Ireland, imploring it to come to their aid. It worked. The storm died down and the Milesians were able to land. A fierce battle ensued, but eventually the Milesians defeated the Tuatha De Danann. They divided the land between the children of Mil and the son of Ich, the man who had been killed. Erimon got the northern half of the island, and Eber got the southern half. The northeastern corner was awarded to the children of their lost brother Eire, who had died in the battle, and the southwestern corner to Lu, the son of Ich. Years later, Orosius, the 3rd century geographer, talks about Hibernia, the nation of the Scoti. So the name Scotia remained as the name of Ireland until the Middle Ages. Because so many Irish monks had gone across the sea to Iona to convert the Picts, the people there referred to the Irish monks as Scoti, and eventually the land around Iona became known as Scotland. Now, I've mentioned the word Inishfeil in earlier broadcasts as referring to the Stone of Destiny, but it was also the name given to Ireland by the Milesians. In fact, the word Inis means island, so the correct translation would be the Island of Destiny. Inishfeil sometimes appears in literature as a synonym for Ireland in romantic and nationalist poetry. For example, in Aubrey Thomas de Vere's poem Inishfeil in 1863. Hibernia is another name for Ireland. When the Romans invaded England, they looked across the sea at an island which seemed to be cold, wet and windy, and always in winter. They called it Hibernia, which in Latin means winter. They saw it as a rather inhospitable place and decided not to invade it. But after the fall of the Roman Empire, Hibernia, that little island, saved civilization. The monks had worked hard to preserve those valuable manuscripts and scrolls which had been burned and destroyed elsewhere by the barbarians who had flooded into Europe, raiding monasteries and burning libraries. That little island was able to save those precious manuscripts which had been laboriously copied by the monks by hand, and later the Irish monks from Hibernia travelled throughout Europe, restoring Christianity. The Island of Saints and Scholars. Well, we've heard of that before, and that was from the 5th to the 8th century. Ireland was known as the Island of Saints and Scholars, or the Insula Sanctorum, because at that time it was where people travelled to from far and wide to study Christian theology in the monasteries in Ireland. Ireland excelled in Latin and Greek, and the famous Book of Kells is a fine example of the high level of medieval Christian art and craft. It was definitely Ireland's golden age. Studies in the monasteries had not been interrupted by the fall of the Roman Empire. In Seamus McManus's book, The Story of the Irish Race, there is a quotation from the medievalist Arsen Darmestaeter, where he says, and I quote, "The classic tradition, to all appearance dead in Europe, burst into full flower in the Island of Saints. The Renaissance began in Ireland 700 years before it was known in Italy. And Armagh, the ecclesiastical capital of Ireland, was at one time the metropolis of civilization." Ireland is often referred to as Rushing Dew. The English translation is My Dark Rosaline or Little Dark Rose. The original poem, Rushing Dew, is thought to have been named after one of I. Mór O'Neill's daughters during either her marriage or betrothal to I. Rua O'Donnell in the 16th century. Later, it was set to music, and Rushing Dew became a political song which was sung in Irish so that it could not be understood by the English at a time when songs about Ireland led to persecution. Rushing Dew was in fact a disguised name for Ireland. It was the earliest personification of Ireland in poetry and music. Rushing Dhu is an allegorical ballad where strong political feelings are disguised as a lover expressing his love to his beloved, but the beloved is in fact Ireland. Ireland is alluded to as a beautiful woman who has suffered in the past, but who will be defended against all hazards and whose life will end in triumph. It was first translated from Irish into English by James Clarence Mangan and then by Padraig Pearse. And what about the name The Emerald Isle? Many people will associate Johnny Cash's song The 40 Shades of Green with the Emerald Isle. But the fact is, the first time the name The Emerald Isle appeared in print was in 1795 in William Drennan's poem When Erin First Rose. William Drennan was born in Belfast in 1754. His father was Reverend Thomas Drennan, who served as a minister in Belfast's First Presbyterian Church. William was a poet, a physician, and a political radical who helped found the United Irishmen. He supported Catholic emancipation and civil rights. He went to Dublin to help with promoting the United Irishmen, but when he saw the movement was turning towards rebellion and a violent uprising, he separated himself from it. William's dream had always been to see Catholics and Protestants working together. He lived and practiced medicine in Dublin until his retirement in 1807, when he returned to Belfast. He worked tirelessly to promote joint secondary education for Catholics and Protestants. And when he died in 1820, he left instructions that his coffin be carried by 3 Protestants and 3 Catholics. The stanza where the name for Ireland first appears is the following. It says, "Alas, for poor Erin, that some are still seen who would dye the grass red from their hatred to green. Yet, oh, when you're up and they're down, let them live. Then yield them that mercy which they would not give. Arm of Erin, be strong, be gentle as brave, and uplifted to strike, be still ready to save. Let no feeling of vengeance presume to defile the cause of or men of the Emerald Isle." Another name for Ireland is the Sean Van Vocht, which means the poor old lady. It appears in a song about, again, the United Irishmen in 1798. It tells of the time when the French expedition to Bantry Bay on the west coast of Ireland. The United Irishmen were filled with confidence that they would succeed with the help of the French. But like so many times before, the sea prevented the ships from landing. William Butler Yeats and Lady Gregory wrote a play, Kathleen Ní Houlihan, based on the 1798 rebellion of the United Irishmen. Maud Gonne played the part of Kathleen Ní Houlihan, who first appears as an old woman, but in fact she represents an independent Ireland. She's based on a figure from Aisling poetry, which portrays a poor old woman from another world who can only be transformed into a young woman if a young man gives his life for Ireland. The play ends with a young man leaving his bride-to-be in order to fight with the French. And so, in the end, Kathleen Ní Houlihan is transformed from being a poor old woman, a Sean Van Vocht, into a beautiful young woman. In fact, she is representing the future independent Ireland. Another word for Ireland is the Free State. According to the terms of the Anglo-Irish Treaty of 1922, Ireland was to be divided. There are 5 provinces in Ireland: Ulster, Munster, Leinster, Connaught and Meath. In total, there are 32 counties. Ulster has 9 counties, but 6 of those were to be called Northern Ireland and were to be part of the UK. The remaining 26 counties were to be called the Irish Free State. People often referred to them as the 26 counties. The name Irish Free State lasted from 1922 to 1937, when it became the Republic of Ireland. We also hear Ireland being referred to as Mother Ireland, meaning the country of our birth, or even the old sod. But the name for Ireland is Eire. Now, on the 29th of December 1937, the Free State came to an end when the Irish government adopted a new constitution, Bunreacht na hÉireann, in which Article 4 declared that the whole of the island would be called Eire in Irish or Ireland in English. It said that Eire is a derivation of the word Eru, an old Irish word from Irish mythology at the time of the Tuatha De Danann. Eru was the name of the matron goddess of the island. Well, be that as it may, Ireland is Eire. So, now you know.
I tried to take my hand back, but you wouldn't let it go. So I kissed the sides of your lips, and you didn't even know. Why do we fight all night with someone won't explain to me? It's just not right. We've tried, and still we try to believe. I'll stand on this corner all night, but the truth is just staring us in our faces. You can't hide away forever. Run away too. Can't do this anymore. Let's stop right here. There's only ashes left now, and all this fear. Why do we fight all night? Will someone explain to me? Oh, it's just not right. We've tried, but still we believe. I'll stand on this corner all night, but the truth is just staring us in our faces. You can't hide away forever. Run away too. Though your mother always liked me, and though your friends did too, it doesn't matter anymore. 'Cause I'm done trying to fight for you, for you.
It's a man called Coolahan, James Coolahan, but his stage name is just Coolahan. He comes from Loughrea, or the Loughrea area of County Galway. And I know all about this, and I only came across him because of a lady that I'm going to be talking to next week on the programme. You heard her music last week, Martina Flaherty from Loughrea in County Galway. I've been in touch with her, and we were swapping details and things like that, and having a chat about, joining me next week on the programme. And she happened to send me a link. She does a radio programme on a community radio station in Loughrea, and she sent me a link to it, and I listened, and most enjoyable. And I heard Coolahan for the first time, so I went back to her and I said, "Who's this fella Coolahan?" And she told me all about him. So there you have it. That's how I came across him. So Martina will be joining me next week on the programme. She's got a smashing voice. We'll take a listen to some of her music, and we'll just find out a little bit about her. So that's one of the items that we have next week on the programme for you. I'll tell you more before the end of the programme, because I have another man lined up that I think you're going to enjoy listening to as well. I'm certainly looking forward to the conversation. So, Patricia, thank you very much indeed for your story on some of the names that Ireland is known by. And that was fascinating. And the thing, you heard her say distinctly and definitively that there are 5 provinces: Ulster, Connacht, Munster and Leinster and Meath. Yeah, they were the good old days. Aye. But we don't recognise Meath as a province anymore, but there you go. Right, okay. Patricia, thanks. Oh, by the way, just to say to you, I tell you this all the time, but you will be able to hear that back on, or listen back on, the TRE website. But if you want to hear what Patricia has done from the very, very, very start, well, then we set up an old podcast and we put them up there. And it's called Stories of Ireland and the Irish. So wherever you get your podcast, you'll find it. That one isn't there yet. No, it'll be there in the morning. But everything that Patricia has done for the programme is there, and you can listen to it. There's all over 90 of those stories up there now at this stage. So if you want to take a listen to it, you're more than welcome. And we look forward to the next story from Patricia, and it'll be keeping in line with that. Right, I have to do a quick break, lads. I'll be back in just a moment.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Talk Radio Europe.
Your voice in Spain.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
You're welcome back to the programme. Thank you for joining me on this Wednesday evening. I hope I find you well, and you find me well. Indeed you do. And it's nice of you to ask. If you would like to send a message, or if you'd like to get involved in the programme, you're more than welcome to do that. You can send a WhatsApp message at +34 645 99 67 95, or you can send an email to studio@tre.radio. I told you that I'm going to be talking to Martina Flaherty next week on the programme. Martina, a County Galway native based in Loughrea, and she has a beautiful singing voice, but there's a number of strings to her bow, and we'll tell you more about that next week when we chat with Martina. But I'm also going to be talking to Trevor Burney. Now, Trevor has written a book which is called Quinn, and there was a documentary series that he made as well called Quinn Country, and it's all about the businessman, the billionaire businessman, one-time billionaire businessman, Sean Quinn. And the book is fascinating. I read it just before Christmas, and I was delighted to be able to get my hands on an opportunity to chat with Trevor. So he's going to be joining me next week on the programme as well to talk to me about that fascinating book. Now, I travelled back to West Clare t'other day. What day was that? Last Saturday. The weather was miserable. It was like night time coming home, and I left Mick's house, I'd say sometime around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe 2:30. And it was like nighttime travelling back from Milltown Malbay back into Ennis. But it was a fabulous trip, and I went there to find out about how to play the harmonica. And I didn't realise it was so tricky. No, I didn't have a go. Of course I didn't. So what I'm going to do is play this couple of ads, and just after that you will hear the interview that I did, or the chat that we had, myself and Mick Kinsella.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
All started when PJ Curtis dropped me an email after Christmas telling me about the memories that he had of getting the present from Santa Claus of a harmonica, or a mouth organ as we call it, many times, and how he struggled but managed to get some class of a tune or a sound out of the harmonica, and sure to be put down then, he told me, and next year he'd get another one. And he said, you should do something about playing the harmonica. and the art that it is. And he said, you should talk to one of the best in the business, and that's Mick Kinsella. And I'm with Mick at the moment. Mick, it's lovely to talk to you. And thank you very much indeed for taking time to have a chat with me today.
That's no problem, Ger. No problem. Yeah, you mentioned PJ there.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him in a while. I hope he's good.
He's in top form, he tells me. I'm looking forward to seeing him in the next couple of weeks. And he'll be back in the Irish shores again in the next couple of months. I'm sure you might get a chance to catch up. The harmonica, where did it start for you?
I suppose when I look back on it now, the 70s, I suppose, and I was a drummer at the time. I was working in Dublin on the buses as a conductor, and loved the drums, wanted to be the next John Bonham.
Yeah.
And I was taking drum lessons and stuff like that, and I would go along to see Skid Row every Thursday, where any Thursday I was off when I was on the early shift.
Right.
And they had two drummers, Davy Gaynor and Nullick Bridgman, who passed away.
Yes, Nullick, yes.
The year before last, I think. He was a really nice character. And I'd go along and watch the two drummers, and that was heaven for me. But one Thursday I went, and I was so used to going in, I just went in and sat down. And when I looked at the stage, there was a lot of small instruments like mandolins and guitars and stuff like that. I had no real interest in folk music.
Right.
And this harmonica player came out and started playing. It was Rick Epping. Right, from Pumpkinhead, right? Yeah. And he was playing this tiny little harmonica, which I found out was a diatonic or a blues harmonica.
Okay.
And the sounds he was getting from it, I just couldn't believe that you could get a sound like that from it, and he was bending the notes on it and making kind of trained sounds.
Right.
So I went up and I asked him, I wouldn't normally stay for a gig like that, but I did. And I'm glad I did, because I saw probably one of the best folk bands around at the time.
Right.
I went and asked Rick afterwards, and he said it's a blues harmonica. So I went out and bought one. Hadn't a clue where were all the missing notes at the end. Didn't really understand, but because it's an odd little instrument. If you play around the centre of it, you can play do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right, or the full scale. But if you go to the bottom of it, some of the notes are missing. You have to make them by slurring or bending the reed to make it go down. I'll just give you a little example.
Do please.
I'll play the middle section first, which is dead straightforward. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Right. Now, if I go to the bottom, it skips, right?
Yeah.
But I can make a note in the middle. Now, that's all by different pressures I put on the reed, which make it slide down to another note. Now, there are semitones in between as well, which you have to learn how to get, right? And on this hole, you have 4. So, and that's all by bending the notes, right? So
and you bend it with the air that comes from your mouth.
The shape of the air in my mouth.
Oh, so you have to change the shape of your lips.
You have to bring your tongue forward or back.
Okay.
And changing that, the shape of the chamber.
Right.
And pressure from the air as well, but it's not necessarily, it's more subtle than just drawing really hard, right? And then there are phonetic words that we use to teach somebody. If I'm teaching somebody, and I want to teach them to bend to that big bend on hole 2,
right,
I would get them to say a word like E-O, E-O, E-O. Now, if I say that into the harmonica, right, I'll say it first and then I'll bring the harmonica to my mouth. You'll see what happens.
Okay.
E-O, E-O, E-O. That actual shape makes.
Are you using your voice box?
No,
with that. No.
Okay. That's just the harmonica. Once you put your mouth up to the harmonica, the sound of your voice disappears, but you get the effect.
Okay.
The same effect goes in and makes that reed pop down.
And I noticed when you were doing that as well that you blow, but you suck as well. Well, you appear to.
Well, there are. You have blow notes and draw notes, right? You have 20 reeds on that, a top reed plate and a bottom reed plate, and you have more than 20, 10 notes on top or 10 reeds on top, 10 reeds on the bottom. You have on most of the draw notes, right? You can bend those. Okay. Draw, I mean, by taking in air, right?
Right.
Some of the top reeds you can blow bend, right? But there's a lot of notes missing in between, right? Now that's they're not actually missing. You can get them with a technique called overblowing and overdrawing, which is another day's work, right? And it could be a couple of hours, right? But you can actually play fully chromatic scales, right? So you can play like a chromatic harmonica on them now, and there are guys around the world that can play jazz on these and stuff like that. The most famous probably would be Howard Levy, but there's a lot of really great young players now that can play jazz and bebop, everything on these. And it's quite hard, Most players would, if they were playing jazz or classic, would reach for the chromatic harmonica, which is this one here.
Okay.
This is a longer harmonica. It's called a Horner 64, and it's 16 hole, right?
Right.
And it's in key of C. It's got a slide or a button.
I'm
on
just
the
looking
side.
at that there. Yeah, it's like it's like a pipe cleaner for all the world with a little button on top, right?
Yeah.
And what's that for?
That if you just look at this harmonica, if I play this harmonica without touching that button there, it's like playing the white notes on a piano, right?
Okay.
Now, when I want the black notes, I incorporate the slide,
you're kidding.
and that gives me all the sharps and flats. Right, so you've got a fully chromatic instrument as well that goes from a really low C to a very high C. Right, so you have 4 full chromatic octaves.
Yeah,
and that you'd hear. You'd know this piece now. Sesame Street, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, Toots Thielemans,
right?
Famous jazz chromatic player. I think it was him that did that.
Was it?
Yeah. A beautiful little piece, and Stevie Wonder, of course.
Yes. Is that what he plays?
That's what he plays. Fantastic player, really fantastic player. And I've never heard anyone that can get the most value out of a reed in my life as Stevie Wonder. He can get full value from every reed, And
the reeds are just flat things, aren't they? They're
small flat pieces of metal, about 2.1 millimeters wide.
Wow.
And then all different lengths, of course. The longer are the deeper ones, right?
Yeah.
And they're sometimes weighted at the end, the little weights at the end to give them and you can affect the tuning of them. As you can see here, I have a workshop that I have little anvils for punching out the reeds and stuff. If I blow a reed out, which happens quite a lot.
Does it?
Oh yeah, it does. Yeah. Especially if you're playing blues on the smaller harps. If the reed starts to fatigue, it gets little cracks that you can't see, so it starts dipping in pitch, so it'll go flat.
Okay.
Right? And then further and further, and you'll know then when it gets to a certain point, when it gets almost to a quarter tone down, you have to replace it. So I have a lot of spares in here from old harmonicas and stuff like that. So I salvage old reeds and put them in myself here and tune them up and stuff like that. So I can keep my harmonicas going all the time. Yeah.
And what about things like moisture?
Yeah, you have to be careful. It depends. If you're playing I teach every year now with Rick. Ironically, I ended up playing with him then, the first person I really saw play the harmonica, and the first really good player. I teach every year now. We teach a traditional course here during the Willie Clancy week in July, the first weekend of the July.
Okay.
And myself and Rick teach. We've been doing it for about 16 years now, and we've great fun, and we have loads of people come every year, and we teach them the little blues harmonica, how to play traditional music on that, chromatic and tremolo harmonica, which is a different one as well.
Okay.
But we teach them if you're playing to sit properly.
Okay.
Never lean forward, right? Never lean forward, because you have valves on these chromatic harmonicas as well, that if something gets underneath it, like the moisture from your breath and stuff like that, it can make the little valves stick. Okay. And then the note won't play, right? Okay. These are free of valves, the small blues harps, but they can, if you're eating a sandwich or after eating something really crummy, right, and you start playing these, and if it's you don't really do it anyway. Never let anyone else play your harmonicas. Yeah. Well, I mean, from
a hygiene perspective,
and it really is nowadays anyway. But the thing about it, your posture is really important. If you sit up straight, have the harmonica, never have the harmonica pointing down, because you're going to.
So it needs to be level.
It needs to be level with you. And some people actually play up
Okay.
So that the saliva, I know it sounds terrible, but doesn't come out of your mouth into the harmonica.
Okay.
But then again, I don't really have a problem like that. And most players I know that are playing professionally and all don't have that problem. They've gotten used to it over the year. It depends on what you drink beforehand too. And like Rick always recommends you take a glass of water with a little bit of lemon in it, and that's it.
Okay.
That's what you know. If
no Guinness.
Well, if you can, I suppose, at a session because you're not on, you're not on the line like just other pairs playing as well. Now, then we have another harmonica here. This is one I built myself, and this is called an octave harmonica. Right. For every note on this, I have 2 reeds playing. Right, and it's gives you great volume at a session. It sounds like a melodeon. Right. Play this with Josephine when she plays the fiddle.
She's Josephine Marsh.
Josephine Marsh is my partner.
Yes,
and we play
a fabulous traditional player as well.
And Josephine plays a few different instruments like concertina, box mainly, but she's a good fiddle player and whistle and lots of different things. So we mix it up a little bit at the gigs, right? So when she's playing fiddle, I will sometimes play the octaves, which is a really nice sound, as you'll hear.
Okay.
Sorry, wrong side.
Brilliant.
It's quite loud, isn't it? And it has, as opposed to the single note sound of the chromatic and the blues harp.
Because you've got the 2 reeds
because you've got the 2 reeds on each note, but they're tricky. Rick showed me how to build those.
Right.
So that's from my little workshop. I do that, and he showed me how to cut the plates up to align the top octave C with the bottom octave C, and sort of that kind of thing. And I also use. This is a chromatic as well, but it's just a different shape and it's the same company. But when I'm playing traditional music, I use a style called a reversed style harmonica, reversed slide harmonica. When I started playing first, I was listening to Eddie Clark, who was a great chromatic player. But Eddie held a slide in. He held a slide in while he was playing, and he would let it out for the rolls, which meant he was in the wrong key all the time for playing at the sessions.
All right.
So he started playing a bit with a local player here who's passed away since, Joe Ryan, the fiddle player, and Joe would tune the fiddle to the chromatic, right? Okay. So they could play together, and they did a beautiful CD called Crossroads, or LP called Crossroads, and it's just a beautiful harmonica and fiddle together, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But instead of like on this harmonica here, like when I press the button, my notes go up a semitone. It'll always go up. This one, the notes go down.
Okay.
But there's a reason behind it, and it would be a day's work to talk about why, right?
Right.
And I even have trouble sometimes explaining it to my students. Sometimes I have a couple of chromatic players now in Dublin, all ladies, by the way, and they're great players. Yeah, three great players. And they come to the lessons every year, and they use blues harps and stuff like that, but they're interested in the chromatic and they wanted to learn this style. So this is the style I would use if I'm playing trad. This is the type where the note goes down. I'm using the slide there, so it goes down, right? Right? It's just, it gives me the rolls in the right places, and it gives me extra notes. But as I say, we would have to have a chart and explain it all out, and it's really kind of anarchy.
That's fine. But to learn that, is it something you can teach somebody, or do you have to have it and allow somebody like yourself to show you how to release it?
No, anybody could learn. Like, it's a really nice little instrument because it's in tune. When you blow into it, anyone you can blow. It's perfect. It's in tune because it comes from the factory in tune most of the time anyway, a lot of the time. And some people adjust them to their own ear. You can adjust them. You can have different, like, equal and just tuning and all that kind of stuff. So it depends on your preferences. But yes, you can teach somebody. The hardest thing to teach somebody at the start is to play one note. Because everybody, they have, as we call it, like loose lips. So they'll put it up to their mouth and go. You usually
Okay.
hear that, where
Yeah.
a kid will always do that. They go, right, they have the breath thing down and stuff like that. But to teach them to get a single note, there's a few different ways. I use what's called the pucker method. You have tongue blocking as well, where you block with your tongue and play from the side of your mouth. And that's useful later on for classical playing and some jazz playing, where you can switch without having to jump and your head up and down an octave. You can just slide your tongue over and play with this side of your mouth. I find it very difficult.
Right.
So I just play what's called pucker embouchure or whistle embouchure. So if I whistle a note, right, this is how I teach them how to play a single note. I will whistle a note first. Put the harmonica up to my mouth. So when I put it up to my mouth,
It's going into one particular
it's
hole,
going into
that's
one,
it.
but it's got the shape. I've got the shape
You've
from
made the
whistling.
shape.
The whistle disappears, of course, but the reed starts playing. Right, so that's how I teach them. And as I told you earlier, to teach them how to bend on the blues harp is you have to use phonetic words like do-wee, ooh-wah, ooh-wah, ooh-wah. So that will, if you put your harmonic up to your mouth and you go ooh-wah, 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 right?
Yeah.
Or to teach them how to play tremolo, you just say do backwards in triplets. So yeah, exactly like that. So you get that lovely vibrato, right? And you can have a tremolo or kind of a vibrato with your hand if you're blowing notes as well.
Right.
Just put your hand to the front. Kind of a cowboy campfire kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's basically the now there isn't one more instrument that I don't actually play that much, and it's called a tremolo.
Okay.
Right, and I wouldn't chance playing it, and that's probably the most common one that players use over here, and most players that enter into the competitions here in the FLAs and stuff will use tremolos, but you get the odd person coming in. The one with the slide, the chromatic, isn't allowed. It's not allowed into competition. It has to go into miscellaneous, which is ridiculous. It should have its own category. Anyway, there's some great players every year. Well, not every year, but some of the FLAs I will go along to see the senior competitions, and I've had a couple of students in the junior ones and stuff like that. So I will go along and see what's on the menu.
When you say you don't play the tremolo too often, being a non-musician, I would have assumed if you can play one harmonica, you could attack them all.
Yeah, a good question. Very good question, but no, not necessarily.
Okay.
Right? No. You have some players that are absolute maestros on the blues harp, but they couldn't play a chromatic. Right? Oh yeah, because the scalular setup is different, right? For a start, as I was showing you earlier, this thing is ridiculous. Like, because you have to bend or slur the notes to get the reeds, to get the
this
notes
is the blues that we're talking about. The blues
harp. Sorry, excuse me. I keep forgetting where.
That's all right.
And the top octave is different again, right? So you have three different scalular setups on this one little harmonica.
And
right?
the holes are all the same size.
Are all the same size, but then again, that's just the channels. That's just the channeling. Like, now, these are this looks a bit bigger.
It does, but they're square.
Yeah,
and then the chromatic and the other one, then they're
round holes. But you can have round holes or you can have square holes. Doesn't matter. Okay. I prefer the round holes on the chromatics, and I prefer the square holes on the. But I could have round holes on these as well if I want.
Okay,
you just get a different mouthpiece, whatever, right? Okay. But they're completely different to play, like the chromatic and this, and then this again. The Eddie Clark reverse style is another method again, right? That you have to learn how to play each of these harmonicas. Of course, you have to persist at them to get good at them, and it's like any instrument. You have a lot of hills to climb at the start, but once you get to a certain, you can start and enjoy yourself. Then when you get to a certain level,
Yeah. How long did it take you to become some way proficient?
Overnight success. It only took me 50 years. Well, I was I was thinking about this last night. What would I say if he asked me how long? How long it took me? I suppose I went to Dublin in 1990. I went back to Dublin. I had been playing with a bluegrass band. No, I had been playing drums for years, right?
Yes.
Rock bands and all that kind of stuff. And most people knew me as a drummer that time that played a bit of harmonica on the side. No, I was never really good at it.
Right.
until I stopped. I had a problem with my eye. I lost it in the end through glaucoma, but I couldn't lift things, so I had to give up the drums because I wasn't allowed to lift things up while I was going through the process, right?
Of course, yeah.
And so I took up the harmonica pretty seriously then and started practicing and trying to learn. There was no internet. There were no real good instruction books. There was nothing like
no
that.
No YouTube to teach you.
No. And not even anyone around. The only ones that were really playing that I knew of at the time were maybe Don Baker in Dublin, and Rick had gone back to America. So there was nobody over here to get any instruction from. And I found it very frustrating at the start. And but by playing with other instrumentalists, I started playing with a friend of mine called Jerry Madden, who was a mandolin player, and he was into bluegrass and stuff like that. So I started playing with him, and I started picking up a little bit of speed and stuff like that. Okay. But as far as learning how to bend and stuff, I did most of that by listening to Charlie McCoy.
That's what I was going to ask you about. Who did you listen to? Charlie
McCoy, and beautiful things like really simple things like Today I Met You on the Street, you know, these things like that. So you have to see if I can. Wrong side, sorry, this is the blues harp again. Wow. Okay, so very simple things like that, but it taught me how to bring the note down to the right pitch. Right. And what I would do is I would have a tuner, and I would put the tuner on. I would look away from the tuner, go to the bent note, and then I would switch around holding it and see if I was in tune.
Okay.
And then I would release it a little, the pressure off it if I was flat, or increase the pressure if I was sharp. So So I learned how to slur between different semitones and stuff that way. So Charlie McCoy, and I actually got to meet him.
Did you?
Yeah, I did a blues instruction book years ago for music sales. Right. And then the same guy that got me to do the book, I had to play it and stuff in the studio, but they used Don Baker's band. It was great. They were all brilliant musicians. So I had to write the tunes, everything, and score it, the whole lot. So, and then the same guy asked me would I edit a book that he'd done with Charlie McCoy. So I was delighted, and I went through the book and just to make sure all the arrows were in the right place and stuff like that. And when he came over then he was on holidays, Charlie, the guy that was from music sales rang me and said, would you like to meet Charlie McCoy? And I said, yeah, sure.
Would I what?
Real gentleman.
Really?
Sitting inside in the Grafton Hotel with a big white Stetson on him, you know. Lovely man.
Completely inconspicuous.
Yeah, completely inconspicuous. But a gent, real soft spoken, and it was lovely.
Fantastic. They say never meet your heroes.
Yeah, but in that case, it was worth it. Yeah, it was worth it. Yeah.
And who else did you were there different performers, different musicians for different harmonicas?
Kind of. Yeah, I suppose in a way, the big one for me would have been Eddie Clark for traditional music. Now, I was lucky because I met one of the Murphy brothers. I don't know whether you've ever heard of the Murphy family. They're a family of harmonica players from Wexford. Okay. The father played, and the two sons, John and Pip, still play. They're brilliant, absolutely brilliant players, right? And there are lots of great players around, and I don't want to start naming too many names because I'll leave somebody out.
Yeah, of course.
And it's not fair because they're really great players, right? But because I met Pip while I was working in Waterford, and somebody knew him and said, there's a great harmonica player. He's a painter. He's up the street from where you work here. I was working in a pub. So he said, I'll have a chat with him and see if he'd meet up, because I was interested in learning how to play crowd. So I arrived up with my chromatic harmonica, and he was playing a tremolo. And he started playing. It sounded like a concertina the way he was playing. He was just brilliant, right? But he was one of the Murphy brothers. I didn't realise at the time how important they were, you know. So
you learned.
But he said, I don't really play the chromatic, he said, but my brother John has a great recording of this fella called Eddie Clark. So he brought it down to play chromatic. So that was the start.
Okay.
And I didn't really understand what Eddie was doing. And I was struggling away. He seemed to be playing in A flat and E flat and odd notes, right? But kind of brass keys, right? So about a year later, I met John, and I said to John, I can't really fathom what he's playing, because he's in strange keys. And John says, I think he howls the button in, and the penny dropped. He holds the slide in, and that's the way he plays. So from then on, I was flying. I was
Incredible.
Flying. Charlie McCoy, as I said. If Rick had been around, I could have gone to Rick and learned a lot of stuff from him, but he'd gone back to America and he was working for Honer. But then in the 90s, I met a guy called Brendan Power, and he's a brilliant player, absolutely an innovator. He's an engineer as well, so he makes new harmonicas. He's always designing and coming up with different ways of easier playing and improving the reeds and all that kind of stuff. And Brendan, fantastic player. He was with Riverdance at the time, and he did a solo spot on the harmonica, which was really unusual, and he played with the orchestra as well. But a brilliant player, and he showed me an awful lot, and was very friendly guy, really helpful, helped me with setting up the harmonicas and taught me an awful lot. And then myself and himself and Rick got together.
Is this when you did this project?
Yeah,
the triple harp.
Triple harp bypass, yeah.
Before we talk about that, can I ask you about the harp? You refer to it as the harp on a lot of occasions.
That's the kind of harp speak between harmonica players.
Okay.
I play harp, but then if you're sitting with what do you play yourself? They'll say, I play chromatic. They won't say harp, but it's the kind of overall harp. You have a lot of different words for it, right? So anything that came from France or from Europe usually came through the ports of France or Holland and stuff like that. So when the blues harmonica started coming out in the late 1800s, right? Started coming across to America. Right? Okay. It was coming from France, as they call it. France, right? And it was called the French harp, right? Okay. French harp, right? And then it became the blues harp. And when black American players got their hands on it, they started playing in a different position on it when they discovered all these lovely juicy bends and stuff on it that I was doing earlier. Yes. So they changed the style completely. It was meant to be played as a folk instrument with chords. And then little melodies on top of that you would play on the top end of it, right? Okay. But they, of course, discovered that you could play lovely kind of plaintive, growling blues at the end, So they changed the style around. So instead of playing in G on a G, they would end up playing in cross position, cross harp, which is D. So that's what you have to contend with a lot of these things as you're learning, right? Yeah. And learning different positions on the harmonica to play. But it was also called, when it came over here, it was called on fiddle franc, which is the French fiddle.
French fiddle, yeah.
It was called the Mississippi saxophone in America. It was called Mouthie in Scotland. The mouthy, right? The tin sandwich, because it looks like you're eating something, right? Yeah. And it's made of tin. The gob iron. Right. I can't even think. But blues harp, yeah. So that's how it got the different names. Like
this may be completely off the Richter scale, but the Jews harp.
Yeah.
Is there any? There's no blowing into a Jew's harp. You're strumming with the finger. Yeah. Is there any correlation? Is there any?
Only that there's a reed in it as well, right? You're actually playing a reed as well. You know, you're vibrating a reed and you're blowing air across or drawing air across it, whatever, right? Right. You can blow and draw on it. Yeah. And you can. It has the same kind of principle. Now at the Willie Week, Rick Epping is a brilliant Jaws harp player, or trump, they call it over here. The trump harp, right? Jaws harp or trump. On trumpa in Irish, right? It's called on trumpa. But Rick is a brilliant player, absolutely brilliant player. And on one of those albums, the Triple Harp Bypass, there's the opening track is I'm playing the chromatic harmonica and Rick is playing the trump. You mightn't see it on that.
The Monaghan Twig, is it?
The Monaghan Twig, yeah. So the Monaghan Twig, Rick plays the Jaws harp on that. Against my harmonica, and it's lovely. I love the effect myself. Right, yeah. We do it at the concert at the end of the Willie Clancy week as well. Okay. But we do teach the trump as well. Okay. So we just get people just to, because it helps with the embouchure, and it helps with understanding the cavern that is the back of your mouth, and the different shapes you can by moving your tongue forward and changing the size of the chamber inside in your mouth, right? To affect your tone and stuff like that. So it actually improves your tone on the harmonica when you play the Jaws harp. Yeah, the Jaws harp, that's what you can.
Again, watching you, does it put pressure on your teeth?
The Jaws harp or the harmonica?
No, the harmonica.
No, your teeth shouldn't be really touching.
I'm just thinking the tongue has to move around and the air coming through and that.
Yeah.
The teeth don't get involved.
Not really, no. As far as I know, they don't anyway. I've never had to think
funny,
about that.
isn't it?
No, not really. But it is important to have your lips in the right place, because it can affect your tone. If your lips are kind of squeezed back off the harmonica, you get a very tinny sound, T-I-N-N-Y, right?
Yeah.
Right, so, but if I go in, if I'm drawing back there and making my lips thin against it, it really actually affects it. I'm loosening off now, but when I go right in an harmonica, but if I draw back, you don't get it. Right?
No.
So, yeah, it makes it, no, your teeth don't really go near it, no.
Okay.
Really.
Are there many young people playing?
Yeah, it's become really popular now, but it's still, I would say, the whole art is quite arcane. You know, it's certain people playing.
Okay.
Certain community, right?
It's tradition, is it?
It's people get interested for particular reasons. I loved it because it was a small instrument, and I heard a guy playing it really well. I was lucky that it was Rick that I heard first,
right?
And then I heard Don Baker doing the fox chases and stuff like that. So I was lucky at that, and there wasn't much else around. Now you have a lot more players because of the internet, and you can go on now and hear all the really good players. You can just bring them up and listen, and they're all giving advice. I do it a little bit myself, not so much, but I do put up
sometimes
videos every now and then on how I play certain things. So yeah, it's much easier now, and you do have a big community. There is a big community of harmonica players. Now you have festivals. Like I was just over teaching at the Harmonica UK in Manchester there a couple of months ago, 2 months ago,
right?
And you had I met a brilliant player there from Spain, Antonio Serrano.
Okay,
and have a listen to him. Oh my God!
Is it big in Spain? Is it a big instrument?
Well, it's you would have to search, but there are a lot of people playing there, I'm sure. Like I wouldn't know of every one of them, but there's lots of blues players and stuff like that. The blues harmonica is really popular, and a lot of people play that. They love the sound, and they've a lot of these what you call overblowers and overdrawers, all trying to play jazz on it. Or not trying, but some of them are brilliant at it. Like most people to play jazz will go to the chromatic. And you have some fantastic players that play chromatic as well. But Antonio Serrano plays the chromatic, and he plays a little bit of blues harp as well. But I saw him in concert in Manchester and made a huge impression on me.
Great.
Oh, fantastic. He played with Larry Adler when he was about 12. And I think Larry took him under his wing. And he moved to London for a while, and he told me, it was probably, he learned an awful lot from Larry Adler and stuff like that. But he is so good. He is just...
It's amazing the way your face lights up.
Yeah.
When
even now, I'm 66 and I can still be blown away, by somebody like, I've heard them all, and he's a really nice guy. We had a great chat. He's perfect English, and he's been around for a long time. So he plays jazz, fantastic classical player, but he also plays flamenco.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And he's just so good. His technique is so good on the harmonica, right? Now, he told me he would never lift up the bonnet. He would never look underneath. He just... because he's probably sponsored. I'm not sure.
Okay.
He may be sponsored by Honer. If they're not sponsoring him, they're making a big mistake, because he plays Honer all the time, and he's a brilliant player. Oh, my God.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
You don't need then. That was actually one of the questions I was going to ask you, because you said you built your own and you repair them and you maintain them and all that, which is fantastic. But you don't need to do that to be brilliant, to be great at it. Obviously.
No. You don't need, because there are customizers out there now.
All right.
Oh yeah, customizers that will work on one of these small blues harmonicas, right?
Right.
Now, Rick again, Rick and Brendan both taught me a lot. They taught me how to do these, how to set the harmonicas up so that they're much the compression is much better on them, so you get an instantaneous response from the reed.
Right.
Because when they come from the factory, they're very good now, right? They come and they play well, they're in tune and stuff like that, but you can improve the playability immensely by knowing a few tricks.
Okay.
Right? Now, there's a bit of work in it. You need particular tools.
Right.
Some of the screws that I have for putting in the reeds and stuff are so small, you could probably have 20 of them underneath your nail. I have to use a jeweler's loop, and as you can see, and
yes, I see it.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because you do need special tools for dealing with harmonica reeds, because they're so small and the rivets are tiny. They're absolutely tiny, right? And it's a skill you have to learn as well, I think. But you can still, if you've got the money, you can just ring up a customizer and say, I want a G harmonica with all the frills.
All the whistles.
Right, all whistles and bells and frills. And you'll get something that will play really well, but you'll pay through the nose for it as well, because they're skilled.
Talk to me about we started and then I digressed. The triple harp bypass. Tell me about that.
Triple harp bypass was an idea Brendan had. He wanted to put a harmonica group together. So we had kind of touch base a few times. Like I had maybe done a gig or two with Brendan, and I'd done a gig or two, or met Rick at workshops and stuff like that. So he said, Brendan had this idea, let's put a harmonica group together. And I said, there's a really good guitar player called Martin Dunlea. He's from Cork, but he lives in Dublin, and he's a brilliant player, can play right across the board. He was the only one I knew at the time that could, now I know that since then there are a lot of players that can do it, but he could play trad, jazz, blues, and he was a great composer. So he composed some of the tracks on this as well for us, to suit the harmonica. He's an amazing player, right? So we got this band together, and we had a rehearsal or two and went on the road.
Wow.
And of course, the interest was there because of Brendan. I suppose he was the big name at the time, even though Rick would be well known as well. I wasn't as well known, but a lot of the musicians would know me. But the combination of the three, we got lots of gigs. So we did a tour in Ireland, and then we went over and we did the Harmonica UK in Bristol. Lovely. We had a concert there, and we did the Hohner Harmonica World Championships in Germany as well, and we played on stage there, and we were judges at it as well.
Wow.
They asked us to be judges. And I was looking at these Japanese and Chinese players coming out playing Vivaldi on a chromatic harmonica, and I just said, why am I judging these people? But I suppose because of my experience and stuff like that. Yeah. And I know a good player from a bad player, and I shouldn't say a bad player, I should say a less proficient player, yeah. Because there's no real bad players. It's just, it's what you put into it, really, And so, we did quite an extensive tour, and then we went to Virginia where Rick was living, and we recorded. He had a little studio in the house, and we recorded that album there.
Yeah, smashing.
It was great fun, I have to say. And he brought us in. He was working for Hohner at the time. He brought us into the Hohner factory, and he said, you can get what you want, he said, for $5 each. So I went around, $5 and I went around and I went in. I was playing these Hohner Special 20s. I love them, right? And I went in. There was one whole section in the factory, and I was like a kid walking along.
One of them and two of them.
Yeah, Pat George. Yeah. And how much are them? So I went along and I got there were all these different variations, like a low F and a low D, and things I couldn't get in Ireland at the time. So I really stocked up.
That was brilliant.
So we had great fun, and we recorded that, and came back, and then we did a few gigs. But it was only a once-off thing, so it kind of fizzled out.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
What's your favourite? Have you a favourite one to play?
Not particularly.
No.
At the moment, my favouritism jumps. Right.
Okay.
So if it depends on what gig is coming up as well, and I'll practice a lot on a particular harmonica. If I'm going to be doing a gig with Joe, I play the reverse style chromatic a lot beforehand,
right? Just
to get back into my tunes and whatever tunes we play together and stuff like that. Most of the time, when I'm out waiting for the boys, collecting them from work or football or whatever music, whatever they're doing, I sit in the car and I play my chromatic harmonica. I'm backing tracks, and I'm trying to learn gypsy jazz all the time, so I'm picking different tunes and seeing if I can play across the chords and that kind of thing.
We were talking just as we were setting up microphones at the start, before we started rolling on the recording, and you mentioned that it was only since the lockdown that you got into jazz.
Yeah.
And how are you finding it?
I love it. I always had an interest in, I play the usuals like Autumn Leaves and stuff like that, and I'm sure everybody's sick of when you come on and say, well, what do we do? Autumn Leaves. Oh yeah, okay,
that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. But I decided, I had started listening a bit to Django, and I started going through some of the tunes, and I found ones that were particularly suitable to the harmonica, like they weren't that fast and stuff like that. So I started with those first. Now, I wanted to be able to play different keys on it. That was the challenge. So to be able to play in G minor or E flat or B flat or whatever relative majors and stuff like that, and to be able to jump around and to understand the changes going from chord to chord and how to play across it, how to connect the chords, how to make it sound like I knew what I was doing. Like I can go into a studio if somebody comes in and if they give me the track before, I will listen to it at home and I'll come up with a solo. No problem. I've been doing it for years. Like, and it's not a brag, right? It's not a brag. It's just because I play so much. Well, I used to play years ago. I played a lot more, but I just got used to that. So if I had the piece of music, I could keep going over and over until I got something that I thought was really nice.
Would work, yeah.
Now, they didn't always agree, but, a lot of the time say, oh, that's really lovely, but can you do something over the D here or something like that signifies you're playing a D or something. So I would change it, there. But I never really understood playing from chord to chord and stuff like that. So since COVID, I used to go out to the car every evening because I didn't want to be driving them mad in the house. And Josie would say, why are you going to the car? And I said, I've just more peace.
Yeah.
Now I could come down here.
Yeah.
And play
the music room.
But I just loved the car. Yeah. It was
of course, the ambience in the car is very good.
It's lovely and it's dead.
Yes.
It's kind of dead.
I've often done interviews in the car because it's actually nicer. Yeah. Because the sound is dead.
Yeah. And I would put on my backing tracks and just play away, and I'm great like that, where I can sit down and I'm dogged, right?
Okay.
I can play for hours, but I can also play really badly for hours, right? And I'm dogged about that too, right? But I know I'm learning. Once I pick it up and I start playing, and no matter how I sound, I'm learning. I'm still learning because bits are going in. Not everything is going in, but every now and then I would hit on something. Why did that sound good there, right? But I can read music now, and I'm studying it, and I'm studying chords and the approach to this. Now I find this is probably the easier music for me. Now some people say it's not easy to play across. I couldn't play at the pace a normal gypsy group could play at,
right?
But that's the luxury. If I start playing this, I will get a guitar player and say, look, we have to play a kind of a third the pace or half the pace or 3/4 the pace. I can't play at that pace anymore. I'm too old for it, right?
Okay.
And it takes away from my playing. So I would play them at a more swingy kind of a thing, which is nice too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's not as...
what else do you play? Apart from the drums, which you probably don't play anymore, do you?
No. Well, I play a little bit with I have a gig coming up with a band called Omega 3. Yeah, 4 old guys, right? And I have done a couple of gigs with them already, but they've got this Omega 3 orchestra now where they've brought in saxophone and piano accordion and myself and harmonica. So I play some drums with them, just brushes on some swing stuff,
Lovely, yeah.
And I'll be playing congas with them as well. I play congas as well. But no, not much now. I used to play a little bit of guitar, but I'm not a guitar player.
Okay.
I leave that to guitar players. But I only played for a bit of fun. No, mainly harmonica and percussion.
Lovely.
That was my thing, yeah. Harmonica and drums and percussion.
Is there anything I haven't asked you about a harmonica?
I don't think so. I think you've covered a lot. Oh, well, there's a trad album there as well with a long-time friend, Steve Larkin. And that's... that was probably my latest kind of project,
Okay.
Yeah.
So. We're going to play something just to wrap this up. What'll I play?
Well, let me see. I also... Oh, yeah, sorry. I should have mentioned, right?
Do.
I play English concertina as well. Now, I play the harmonica in a rack, right?
Oh, yeah, okay.
The holster,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Correct. And I play the concertina to the back myself.
Oh, wow.
So maybe you could play, is it the first track on that, Coleman's March?
Yep, it is.
Yeah. That's the combination.
That's the new album.
That's it's the latest album.
latest.
Yeah, it's a couple of years older. But yeah, if you play the first track on that, I'm playing the concertina and harmonica together.
Wow.
And Steve is playing kind of in open tuning. It's in a beautiful American tune called Coleman's March, and we go into a hornpipe afterwards. Then so
is Josephine teaching you the concertina?
No, it's a different style.
Is it?
Yeah, you see, you have two. Now, that's another thing I got from Rick, right? I took lots of things from Rick and Brendan over the years, borrowed and stole a lot of things. But Rick is, he can play a couple of different instruments with the harmonica. Or he can play the accordion. I've seen him playing the accordion with the harmonica.
With the harmonica, yeah.
Great clawhammer player, clawhammer banjo style, and can play the harp with that as well, right? He can play it with, I suppose, mandolin. He can play almost any instrument now, Rick, but he's brilliant with the English concertina, which is different.
Right.
Like the Anglo, you've got wide straps that go out, and you play, the buttons are out here on the front.
Okay.
And it's a different note in and out. The English, you've thumb holders, right? And little two brass things that you
with your
fingers in. Excuse me. And then it's the same note in and out, so you can form chords.
Okay, yeah.
And you can lengthen the
draw.
chord. You can draw the chord and hold it. So that's what you'll hear on the first of that. That's another thing I borrowed from Rick as well. But if you heard him playing, it's fabulous.
Did you put a name on this album, or is it just?
It's just Kinsler and Larkin, really. That's all. We were thinking of all kind of pretentious names, and then we just said Steve isn't into that at all. He wouldn't like to know. So.
Right. It's no wonder then that PJ had trouble, when he was struggling with the harmonica, because it takes a bit of time.
It does, and it takes dedication.
Yeah.
Anyone can pick it up and just blow into it. And you have a lot of styles that are like Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen and stuff. They just blow and they get a lot of, it's quite atmospheric, and it's nice. They play G. If they're playing they will pick it up and just play G on a G, right? Okay. Whereas I'm playing, I will play D on a G.
All right, okay.
I will play in the blues position, right? Because I've got the flattened seventh and stuff like that. But they would just pick it up and play, and it's lovely. And, I've often, people say, Josephine would slag me sometimes. She'd hear maybe Bob Dylan playing, and she'd say, "Oh, that's great harmonica there." And I'd say, it is actually a great harmonica because it's quite atmospheric,
Yeah, she's just waiting for a reaction.
Yeah, she's waiting to see if she can get a rise out of me, Yeah. But it's. I've learned a lot from Josephine as well.
Yeah.
Because when I'm approaching traditional tunes now, if I come across a tune that has a difficult piece within it, right, I will ask Josephine to play the tune, and she can play differently every time. I've never come across anybody. The amount of variation. Now, my son picked it up from her. My older boy, he was a piper. He gave up the pipes, unfortunately, but when the two of them played the tin whistle together, it's unbelievable. They're the whole time doing different improvisations. Yeah. And I don't know how they do it. I'm pretty straightforward, right? Except when it comes to the gypsy, I can, but I will play the tune the same almost every time. But Josephine varies them. So if I have a difficult tune, I will ask her to play it and to give me a few ideas, maybe to get around that difficulty.
Gotcha.
So
Mick Kinsella.
Yeah, Ger, no problem.
Delighted to have met you. Delighted to have been here with you to talk to you. And thank you so much indeed. We'll hear the Coleman's March.
Do. Okay. All right. And thanks, Ger.
Now you can see why I came away feeling so good last Saturday after talking with Mick Kinsella. That was himself and Steve Larkin, Steve on the fiddle and Mick on the harmonica and English concertina. Thank you to PJ Curtis for giving me the idea to go back and talk to Mick in West Clare, and thank you to Mick for taking the time. Thank you as well to Patricia Traynor for her story today on the different names that Ireland is known by. Because it's the end of the programme. That's it. Done and dusted. Simple as that. As always, a big thank you to our Spanish-Irish cultural advisor, Antonio Sierra. As I said to you a little earlier on the programme, I am planning to head back to Spain over the weekend. And I look forward to being back in the studio next Wednesday, where it'll be drier, less breezier, and a lot warmer, I think, than it is right now. Right, we have the news coming up in 9 seconds, and just after that, we go to the BBC until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning when Dave is in. From me, Ger Sweeney, until next week, thank you, goodbye, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Ger Sweeney presents Live on Eire in association with emeraldconnection.net.
You've been listening to a TRE production. If you've enjoyed this programme, there'll be another episode waiting for you next week, right here on this platform, where you can also access our extensive back catalogue of shows and interviews. For more information on our live programming, social media channels and apps, and how to contact Talk Radio Europe, please visit TRE.radio.